What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm going to talk about Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ, and many tickers out there as well, and what's going on with the news affecting the markets and Tesla, and what you should be watching for as we approach tomorrow. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $50 cash reward. The offer ends in 10 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, guys, so looking at the market, it's almost exactly what I told you yesterday. I told you guys that Nvda and Apple would likely lead the way up. Apple did help out, but in my opinion, the bigger leaders were like Tesla and Nvda. Both of them are pumping very nicely, and the market is looking quite good for the time being. But will the market continue to pump like this for a longer period of time? That is going to depend on Nvidia's earnings and what Jerome Powell says at the end of the week. That's also going to depend on other events such as like bank downgrades, whether they happen or not, and other factors like that. But for now, as we approach Nvidia's earnings, we have some time, and for now, the technicals look quite bullish. And let me break down exactly why that is, and also talk about some news real quick before I get started. But first, let's look at this. So the fear and greed index was almost on the fearful side. This gauge right over here was almost fearful. And right before this happened, I told you all the market may get a bounce when you least expect it, right? When people were starting to capitulate, we saw extreme fear coming in, and everyone was talking about Michael Burry shorting the market and this and that. Instead, we're starting to get a bounce as we had some bullish signals and an inverse head and shoulder on SPY and Apple and all these other factors. I also mentioned that Nvidia would help the market pump a bit, and that is playing a big role in dictating the momentum right now, right? So that played a big role as well, not to mention some good pieces of news. And overall, this is helping the markets. Now, let me also add that the market is becoming less greedy than before. We're also seeing the McClellan volume summation index quite neutral. But if you look at the put to call ratio right now, it's only at about 1.0. This is very important because as soon as a lot of people started buying those puts, they started shorting the market hard, calling the crash, talking about Michael Burry. And please remember that don't just believe all the news about Michael Burry shorting the market, because it's based off his filing report that tells us information about the past. In the past, he was shorting the market, but we don't know if he closed a short position or not. So don't just believe anything like that. You have to know that he shorted at one point. He could have closed a little bit after, and we don't know about that just yet. That's based off delayed data. So with the whole Michael Burry news and like the market going crazy about this crash and this and that, when people became super fearful and started shorting, that's exactly when you would be expecting some kind of bounce. That's the exact time the market started bouncing, not to mention because of these other catalysts such as Nvidia's earnings. Now, for earnings, we have Macy's, Lowe's, and just a couple of others like Kohl's, and the list goes on for retail. But don't forget, Nvidia has earnings on Wednesday after the market closes. This is going to be very, very important. Now, we're pumping approaching it. Yes, I think we're going to continue pumping approaching it, but who knows what's going to happen after. The market could always get a rug pull by the time we get to Thursday. And if Powell says things which are not good for the markets, if he's very hawkish during his speech at Jackson Hole, the market could also get a rug pull for those days at the end of the week. That's a real possibility. This also aligns very well with the SPX possible formation. No guarantees, however, because you have to be open-minded. Now, to add on to this, we have two things coming out for tomorrow. 30 minutes after the market opens, we have existing home sales data, and then we have some manufacturing numbers. Okay, for the first 30 minutes, expect some volatility. I can't really predict this exactly, but the charts still look quite good, and I don't think it's going to be enough to really cause the market to get rug pulled. So I think the market will keep pumping anyways. And then for the second big thing that's coming out, at about 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time or New York time, or 1.5 hours before the market closes, right? We have two Fed speakers. Whatever they say could cause some volatility. Hopefully, it's nothing too crazy as the market's still looking quite decent. For Tesla, we had some good news and not so good news. The good news was Barrett has come out and they're giving Tesla some very, very good ratings. They're saying that Tesla could go to $300 a share. They're saying that there are big catalysts coming out for the rest of the year. The Cybertruck is going to be huge and this and that. And all of this awesome news has helped Tesla pump quite a bit today. However, one not so good piece of news was that Tesla lost one of its most senior engineering executives. This was very important. Colin Campbell has announced that he's going to be leaving Tesla. That's very important. With him, once again, continuing to do this. With him leaving, this could be not the best of news for Tesla for the morning, but so far it hasn't really affected it that much. So I just want to say I really appreciate Colin Campbell and all the work that he has done. But all good things come to an end. So eventually, it is what it is. I really hope Tesla finds somebody else as great as him, and I want the best for him moving forward. Now, for Tesla, what's good is the volume was 135 million above average volume, which is beautiful. That's what we were looking for. I warned you guys that volume might start going up in my video from yesterday. We're going to be watching this, and this is great news for Tesla because more aggressive buying is coming in as the algorithms have shifted more bullish as we had bullish formations on Tesla, right? So we had the inverse head and shoulders. We started to see the algos buying up. The algo flow was quite positive, and that's just another part of the good things for Tesla. We're going to be watching this analyst grading right here. We have another one coming out very soon. So far, more analysts are saying to buy Tesla. So we're going to be watching this for tomorrow and beyond. Maybe over the next 2 days, this should update to more buy ratings. The price-price ratio is bouncing as Tesla's gaining relative strength, which is a good sign. Tuesdays tend to be green 51% of the time, so it's kind of 50-50 historically, but I think so far Tesla has good momentum and it should continue going. Also, during the third and during the sixth hour of the day, Tesla tends to see more volatility, more green. So watch it carefully during those hours historically. And then finally, during the overall short sales volume, this is once again not that high right now. We're not seeing Tesla being shorted too hard, which is a good sign for it. So now I'm going to go back to the charts in just a second. Let me just close these tabs so that nothing goes wrong with my overall network and stuff. But anyways, looking at Tesla, it looks bullish overall. We had this inverse head and shoulders like structures trying to push up. If we're really bullish, okay, you're going to be watching resistance at 232.5. If that breaks, there's 234 to 235 basically comes next. Above that, we have 238, 240, and then 241.75, which is where we have this unfilled gap to about 242. And above that, we have a lot of chop around the mid 240s coming next. Now, if Tesla breaks down, we have support at 230, which is going to be very strong, 228, 227.5, 225, and then we have 221 is the next major support, and then 215. So these are support levels, and these are resistance levels to watch for. What do I think is going to happen? Most likely, Tesla may cool off just a little bit because we got this breakout from 230. What sometimes happens is we kind of come down to retest the breakout at 230. We might see Tesla kind of come down a little bit with some negative news involving their executive. And then once it's down here, it could come down to like 230, if not 228, then get a really nice bounce and start pushing back up to 232.5. Tesla may trade a little sideways for a little bit of time before this thing starts pushing near like the second half of the day and tries to make its way back up to about 235. We might see Tesla break that. If it breaks it, I'm going to be watching 238 for the imbalance fill. I think the odds favor more upside for Tesla. It may kind of like cool off a little bit first, but I'm going to be watching for another push up to the high 230s if we could get above 235. If that's the case, then 238 to 240 are real possibilities. And I think the odds favor more upside for Tesla, in my honest opinion, at least as we approach NVIDIA's earnings. Next off, let's talk about NVIDIA. How is this thing looking? This thing is an absolute monster. This thing exploded today. It got this break that we were talking about this. I warned you all that it's very likely that this thing came down on Friday because the institutions were buying like crazy. It bounced almost exactly at our level. Then it started to break out and made the full measured move in just one day, which is crazy. I was talking about 470 on Nvidia yesterday, but I thought it would happen by Wednesday. Instead, it happened all in one day. What does this mean? It could cool off to about, like 468 or so, just a little bit before it tries to push up even higher. If it breaks 475, watch 480. I think if it holds above 480 either tomorrow or the day after, that tells us that it's going to go all the way up to 500 basically right before its earnings. I think that's very probable. But don't forget to watch, like if it breaks 480, watch 490, then 495. What do I predict is going to happen? It could cool off either a tiny bit because it didn't really cool off much today. It could even like gap down just a tiny bit, retest 468 or so, then get a bounce and start pushing for 475, then potentially 480. And if it breaks that, 490 is a real possibility, 495, then 500. If it holds above 480 tomorrow, there's a good chance we're going to see 500 right before earnings starts, right before earnings. I'm not saying after. And then we're going to see some very, very bullish price action approaching earnings. After earnings come out on Wednesday after close, who knows what's going to happen? It could push very hard, could gap up or gap down very hard. I don't know which way it's going to go, so be open-minded, and this could always affect the market big time. On SPX, here's the thing about SPX that aligns with NVIDIA very well. I was trying this out over the weekend. I showed you guys this. We have a possible head and shoulders that could be developing on it. So we had this left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder is developing. The right shoulder would take this thing to about 44.50 or very close to that. Why is this important? Because we're only halfway there. This thing has more potential upside coming. Okay. But we're going to be watching this resistance by Wednesday. Do we break out of this? Do we start pushing with Nvda and also Jerome Powell's speech? Does the market just keep going to fill this gap? Or does this head and shoulders play out and do we get a big rejection to come right back down? Both of these are possible. I'm going to be open-minded and be very unbiased when I say this. They're both possible. So far, I know like the head and shoulders is a real possibility. Either way, regardless if we keep going or not, the market has more room for upside to retest this resistance zone, and we'll see if it rejects or not. Watch 44.50 on SPX. That's going to help SPY pump a little bit more. On SPY, I told you guys that we had the bullish falling wedge that formed on it, right? We were talking about this. We got a nice bounce off of that, a nice breakout. And I told you, as long as we don't break below 435, this thing is going to keep going most likely, right? So we had this falling wedge. It's a little hard to see. I actually talked about this in my previous video. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now because I'm trying to make this video kind of quick because I recorded this entire video, then it got deleted by mistake, and now I have to re-record this. But anyways, the inner percentage shoulders is still holding up. It's looking very, very nice so far. We have this imbalance at 440.5. 441.5-ish, and then we have 442, then 444 as resistance. For support, you have 438, and below that you have 437.5, 437 flat, which is actually not that strong support. Then we have like 436.5 and 436 and beyond, right? So what do I think is going to happen? I think it's going to come down to 438 or so, maybe drop a little bit more to retest this trend line. It could drop just a little bit, get a really nice bounce and start pushing for 440.5. I think it's going to try to get to this imbalance. I don't know if it's going to break 440.5 or not. It might just break above the 200 EMA. If it breaks it, watch this thing pump, in my opinion, to about 441.5. I think that's going to be very probable, and I think the odds favor more upside. So a small drop, then a bounce, and a pump to 440.5, if not 441.5, is what I am leaning towards. Now, finally, for the triple Q, before I talk about Aapl, I think I should have talked about Aapl first. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The QQQ may come down to retest 362, right? We have support right over here. We also have this resistance, previous resistance trend line right here. It's going to be like a confluence to support right over here around this 362 zone. Get a bounce off that and a push up to about 365 plus, if not 366 plus, depending on how much Nvidia pumps this thing up. It looks more bullish in my opinion. So watch for a small backtest of the 362s, a bounce off that and a push up to 365 plus. Seems more probable for the QQQ. Another big thing affecting the market is Aapl. So we had Tesla that's checked off. We had Nvidia pumping that's checked off. That's good for the bulls. But what about Aapl? Aapl also helped. It wasn't as strong though, but it did help to some extent. We have this imbalance around this 177 area, if not all the way up to this resistance at 177.5. Now, for support, you're going to be watching 175, 174.63, then 174 flat. And for resistance, you're going to be watching 176, 176.5, 177, and then 177.5, followed by 178. What do I think it's going to do? I think it's going to come down maybe to 175, retest the 50 EMA, bounce off that and start pushing for 176. It might break this. If it breaks it, watch this resistance around 176.5. I don't know if it's going to break above the 200 EMA. I don't know if it's going to hold above 176 as soon as tomorrow or not. If it does break 176.5, it's going to likely push into the 177s pretty fast to get to this imbalance right here, which is acting as a magnet. I think it might get here before Nvidia's earnings, which should pump the market more. And if it breaks this, I mean, there's 177.5 and 178 coming later. But I think the odds favor upside. A little bit of a drop and more upside coming for Aapl, and 177 should come very soon if we break 176.5. So that's pretty much it for like my trading view charts. I want to just quickly go over just a couple of things. The MACDs are basically very similar on SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, Aapl, and the list goes on. They're all flipping a lot more bullish on the 4-hour time frame. So no matter which ones I look at, it's the same thing, right? SPY's is looking bullish. So is Tesla's. You could freeze the video if you want. Tesla's looking more bullish overall. That's like the bigger trend. Apple's the same thing. QQQ is the same thing, right? They're all flipping a lot more bullish on their MACDs. Nvidia, the same thing. What about AMD? I think AMD is going to follow Nvidia. It could drop a little bit in the morning to retest 107, then bounce, then hit 109, 111, and 113 are all possibilities for it. thanks to Nvda. The VIX is coming down. If it gets this bearish cross in the PPO, it could come down to about 16.5. Sorry about that, guys. 16.5 could come next on the VIX. We're going to see if that bounces or not over there, but it is looking a little bit more bearish, and this could be helpful for the stock market. The dollar came down, so watch 103. I believe it's 103.08 at the 50 EMA. See if it bounces off here or not. It's looking a little bit more bearish, so that's a bullish sign for the markets. The 10-year is still holding up, so we'll see if this thing ends up getting a rejection or not. It is forming a bearish divergence, so it might come down to fill this gap, which would be a bullish signal for the charts, but not a guarantee. We have to see that just to be safe. If it does come down, that's going to be bullish for the market. If it keeps going, it's not really affecting the market that much, but I'd still be a little bit more careful if that's the case. For Google, watch it retest 128, then bounce to 129.6. If that breaks 130, then 131.5 are real possibilities. I think it's going to drop a little bit, then push up to about 130. I think the odds favor that as it's holding up quite nicely. For Amazon, watch it come down to about 133.5-ish, just a small drop before it tries to push up to 135.7. I think it's going to make its way back into the 135s ultimately and try to push closer to 136. Overall, small drop, then a bounce and a pump almost to 136 is very possible. For Meta, we called out 290 yesterday. I told you it should hit 290. We hit 290.5 today as the high of the day, very close. Watch it come down to 285. It could retest this area and it should bounce. If it gets the bounce and breaks 290, watch this imbalance up here at 293-ish. I think it's going to get to 293 at the very least tomorrow. Come down a bit, then bounce for 293. If that breaks, 296.5 is going to be tested or very close to the mid 290s based off the 200 EMA. So for the market, we could see a tiny little drop tomorrow in the morning, then get a very, very nice bounce. I think the market has more upside looking at the inverse head and shoulders and the bullish structures. Sorry, guys, for being kind of fast through this analysis. I'm trying to get this out as fast as possible because I'm very late today. But take care, everyone. Watch the charts very carefully. Watch the resistance levels and know the charts are looking more bullish than bearish in my opinion. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Market to the moon as the long term is very bright. Stay healthy and safe, everyone. I know the weather is not the best for people on the West Coast because of the Hurricane Hillary. So just take care, stay strong, do what you have to do, never give up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next video. Tesla to the moon alongside the whole market as the long term is very bright, and peace out.